And now, after years of planning, sweating, and going broke, here is the Boots and Whiskey Podcast with Jim Belisle.
I'll alert the media.
Why they would give this man a podcast is anyone's guess.
Then there is what could only be a bizarre coincidence or something else.
Welcome to the Boots and Whiskey Podcast with Jim Belisle.
Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
Country music and fine moonshine. Finally, a podcast that lets it all hang out.
Let's level with America.
Got your boots? Ready for some whiskey?
These boots are made for walking.
One of these days, these boots are gonna walk all over you.
And now, the Boots and Whiskey Podcast with Jim Belisle.
Hey Nation, Jim here, Boots and Whiskey Podcast. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to another episode of the show. Today we have Edwin McCain on the show. For those of you that are like, well, Edwin McCain's not country. Yeah, I guess you're right. He has made his opera debut. I guess that doesn't make him country. He's a singer-songwriter. I guess that doesn't make him country. What else? Had huge hits in the 90s with I'll Be. He's friends with Darius and, the like, Sister Hazel, who's been on the show. But this isn't necessarily about just country music. There's also a element of singer-songwriter that we do here. And Edwin's one of the best. He has a new album out called Lucky. Go check it out. He will be on the road this summer with Train. We're going to hit up one of those shows for sure. They're going to be here for 3 nights at the South Shore Music Circus, I think, Cape Cod Melody Tent, and then over at Mohegan. Probably do the Mohegan show because, I don't want to drive across the bridge on a Friday or Saturday. Fuck that. But yeah, so Edwin McCain is here. We had a great time. This is a great conversation. It was a lot of fun. The best part about this episode for me is the story. And that's what we've always done here. So if it is your first time, welcome. What you're going to get here is a story. It's not a question answer kind of thing. So we just have fun. And we had fun with Edwin. Edwin, thank you again for being a pal and doing this. And, thanks for taking the time, man. It was very, very enjoyable. And it's nice to call you a friend. So kick back, relax, enjoy the episode, and we'll see you on the flip side. Cheers. Welcome to the show.
When you're near Worcester.
I am, yeah. Have you ever played it in Worcester?
Are you kidding me, man? The New England is my peeps.
Yeah. I saw you one time. I've only seen you once.
Where was that?
At Showcase Live in Foxborough.
We used to play that gig all the time, man. I may have had the record of playing that place more than anybody.
You might have.
And then Blue Ocean Music Hall.
Yeah.
Play up there. And then we played. God, it's one of these places that's like really old school. It's like a tavern. I'm trying to remember where it is. But my sax player, I asked him where we were staying because he also doubles as a tour manager, and he goes, "We're staying in a little town called Leominster." And I was like, "You mean Leominster?"
Yeah. Why the hell would you stay at Leominster of all places?
No, because it was right near where we were playing. But no, that
makes sense.
And I was giving the crowd up there one time. I was giving them a hard time about me never getting to sing the anthem for the Patriots, and then the Patriots called a week later, and I hung up on the girl because I thought it was some people up there playing a joke on me.
Yeah.
And after I had hung up on her twice, my manager calls and goes, "Hey, will you quit hanging up on the Patriots lady?" And I was like, "Oh, sorry." And so I went up there and sang the anthem for the AFC Championship game against Pittsburgh. And that was when I knew for final and for certain that Bill Belichick is the greatest football coach of all time, because he saved Chris Hogan. He had Chris Hogan in his back pocket that whole season and just waited for that game to start throwing touchdown passes to him. Nobody was covering him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's one of those things that's funny where it's like, you know, you have a team like that was so good for so long and now they suck.
Yeah, and you have to acknowledge that was a magical duo between Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, and the culture that they built around. You got to show up and buy in, or don't show up. You know, and it wasn't this is what we're doing. And either you get on board with the way we're doing things, or just get out of here because we're not gonna bend to you. Right. And I think that's I've seen like interviews with Julian Edelman where he's like, you couldn't get him to budge. I mean, that's just what it was. And when I went up there to do the anthem, I was such a huge fan. I was, the first thing they said was like, "Hey, do you want to meet Coach Belichick and Tom Brady?" And I was like, "No, I don't. I want them to prepare for this game. They don't need any distractions. I want them to go out there and kill Pittsburgh tonight because I got a lot of." And they were like, "Hey, do you want to sit in the box with Bon Jovi?" And I was like, "No, I want to be down in the stands with the fans. Like, and I don't care where. It doesn't matter." And so they put us right in the middle, down low, and we were down there with all the rowdy fans screaming, "Where is Roger?" Roger Goodell didn't show up, and the whole stadium's chanting, "Where is Roger?" And oh man, we were having the best time. Yeah, that was one of the best nights. That was a good time.
Now, when you're in a setting like that, right? Do people know who you are? Do people recognize you?
Hardly ever.
Really?
Yeah, because, I don't really look much like 25-year-old me, and that was the last time there was a lot of publicity built up around it. And, like, on a day of show, like, near the venue I'm playing, yeah, people will recognize me, but not. No, I've been pretty stealthy about it. And the reason, right when I first signed with Atlantic, I read an article about Steve Miller. And Steve Miller had purposely kept his face out of a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And everybody knows all those Steve Miller songs. You could probably sing 5 of them, like, without even blinking. But nobody knows what Steve Miller looks like. And so there was this Rolling Stone article about Steve Miller, and Steve Miller and Chris Squire went to hear James Taylor play. And the whole time, the whole concert, Chris Squire is just getting hit up for autographs and just being generally molested. And the entire time, Steve Miller is sitting right next to him, and nobody said boo to him. And I was like, man, Steve Miller's a genius.
Yeah.
And he had all the benefits of FM radio fame and none of the hassles in public. And I always really appreciated that part of it. And so I tried to keep my face out of as much as possible, as much as I could get away with in the old days. But yeah, man, I walk around almost totally anonymous. It's great.
I think about other artists that were like, were big and popular at the time where you were big, big and popular. And I know the Rock Boat Crew is probably rolling around listening to this thinking that like you've just vanished, and you haven't, right? But, when it comes to major fame and success, like even at that time, another person to think about with that sort of, everybody knows who they are without knowing who they are is like Kenny Wayne Shepherd.
Yeah.
When Blue on Black came out, like everybody knows that song, but you could put Kenny in a room and nobody's going to know who the hell he is.
Yeah, and to this day, like the song, my big song is like almost 30 years old, and to this day, part of the thing that sustains us is there's a huge portion of the general public that knows the song but doesn't know it was me.
Really?
Oh yeah, no, it happens all the time. Like, oh, you're the guy that sings that song, but part of that has to do with Napster because
That's true.
Napster had my song incorrectly labeled as the Goo Goo Dolls, and then Iris incorrectly labeled as me. So
Huh.
yeah, and there was a lot of Jeffrey. There was a live version of "In Your Eyes" that Jeffrey Gaines did
Yep.
that was attributed to me, and it was so prevalent. I had to start playing the song because people were getting pissed. And
Yeah.
and actually, I'll tell you the reason I actually learned how to play that song. I got hired to do a private event for Dale Earnhardt Jr., and he specifically requested that I played my version of "In Your Eyes," and I was like, I didn't have the heart to tell him it wasn't me, and I was like, okay, I'll just learn it. It's just easier to learn it than to tell people the truth.
No, now that it's been so long, right? Do you? And I'm sure you play it every night, and have to play it every night. I don't want to say have to, but is there ever a point where you get on stage and you're like, I don't want to play this fucking song again tonight?
No,
No.
I get to play that song. Like that song has literally been. I mean, I'm sitting in the house that song built.
Right.
Like
Right.
you can't. Like I've seen that. Like I know like Todd Rundgren doesn't like to play bang on the drum, and I've seen like people be sort of feel some type of way about the song that define them because it
Right.
sort of pigeonholes you. But you know, I I came from such an improbable place in the music business. Like I was literally I was the kid that was playing the tiki hut behind the Holiday Inn and managed to con my way into the music business. So no, it's never. In fact, when I play that song every night, I literally try to play it like it's the first time. Like
Nice.
I want to play it as good as I possibly can so that if somebody is standing in the audience and has not heard the song and their friend goes, yeah, this is the big song. Like that's what I want them to go, oh, okay, I get it. That's why,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and for, now that's 55-year-old me's perspective. Was there a time where 28-year-old me was maybe a little. I think there was a period of time where 28-year-old me was like, I don't want to just be known for singing wedding songs.
Right. Right.
And, because 28-year-old me is an idiot. 55-year-old me is so great, so thankful that I get this every June. I have a new life. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And
Now,
I have 3 songs that are sort of perennially used in weddings, and you don't realize that every year your songs it's like it gives them all a new life because a new batch of freshly married people are using your song. The only downside of that is you lose half of them to divorce. So hopefully they still have a warm and fuzzy about the song.
right. Right.
But,
Right. Now, with your career, right, and all the songs you've written, and I mean, you've had other hits, not as big as I'll Be, but do you, is there a song in your, catalog that you think to yourself, this should have been bigger than that?
Promise to You.
Okay.
That was the song we wanted, and before Atlantic kind of tricked me into doing the Diane Warren song.
Yeah.
Because I thought Promise to You was going to be big. But I don't, yeah, but I will say this. I learned my lesson about picking singles because on This Guy Rose's I was sure I had this song called "See the Sky Again," and I thought for sure that was the song. And I forced the issue with Atlantic about making it the first single, and it didn't even circle the bowl. I mean, it went straight down. It didn't do anything. And that was kind of when I was like, okay, I'm going to trust the professionals and just keep my mouth shut. Cause I think you're too close to it as the writer and the singer, to be able to accurately predict what the market will respond to. Plus, it's such a crapshoot anyway, and the amount of hustle that it takes to get a song to break at radio. Because like back then, I used to have a spiral notebook, and I would get up at 8 o'clock every morning and just start calling program directors. I just blow them up. I mean, I would just spend 3 or 4 hours every day calling these guys. And it got to the point where some of them were annoyed, but then they just started laughing about it because they're like, holy shit, this kid is never going to stop calling us until we add his record. And it's just easier to add the record than to deal with them pestering. It's what you had to do. I mean, it was what it was. And I don't think, the people at Atlantic say that the only person that worked harder at radio than me was Phil Collins. And I don't know if I believe that, but they may be right. They said Phil Collins was relentless too.
I'm from the stories I've heard about Phil, I'm sure that's true.
Yeah, I mean, for us, like, I didn't have a story. I didn't have a unique story. I didn't have big tits, and I didn't live in a van, and I didn't,
Right.
I didn't have any interest. I didn't really have an interesting story to ride on. Like when I did interviews, it wasn't, there was just really not that, it wasn't, I mean, and
It wasn't
I
flashy.
used to laugh about that. I was like, I feel like I need to go rob a convenience store or something, do something of note just to have, like, cause it just wasn't, I grew up in Greenville, South Carolina, and I play a million frat gigs and eventually made my way onto the record label. And, that was it. That was the thing.
Yeah.
And mercifully, and I say this all the time, I mean, as much as I believe that what we do is valid and good musically, it also had a lot to do with the timing.
Oh yeah.
The timing was impeccable. I mean,
Yeah.
Malcolm Gladwell has this book called Outliers that really hones in on how important timing is to the zeitgeist of things being successful.
Right. I mean, you think about it, right? Even, I'm a little younger than you, right? But like I remember, being God, when all these songs we're talking about are coming out, and you're big on the scene, and you've got Hootie, you've got Collective Soul, you've got Sister Hazel, you've got all these guys in these bands that are just killing, right? And at that point I was 11, 12 years old, and you guys are singing songs about love and heartbreak and all these things, and like, my generation is singing all these songs like we have any idea what the fuck we're talking about.
Right.
And it's, but like, all of those songs and all of these artists, and like we're seeing it now because everybody's having like almost a resurgence, and
Oh,
it's like,
I'll just kick it in, baby.
right, right,
Thank God.
right, because we're all pushing that age of like, we're all getting to be 40, and it's like I remember all of these songs from when I was a kid, and that's what we want. That's what we want to see, because the bands that are out now just pretty much suck.
Well, and it's funny too. I always knew it was coming. I've been biding my time, waiting for the nostalgia to kick in. But one of the things, and I went through it with AC/DC and all the bands that I grew up with. and you want to go see your childhood favorites while they're still competent enough to play.
Right.
Because there's a weird drop off that occurs. Like, the only bands that have really managed to, in my mind, that have managed to sort of beat the curve is Styx and REO Speedwagon and the Doobie Brothers and but there's not a lot of the bands that are in their 70s that are still really bringing it at a high level. I mean,
Right.
I don't want to impugn a bunch of other bands, but you see the clips of some people where like they're not even really singing, and it's just stems that are playing, and you're going, okay. And I get it that some, it's still valid because it's selling tickets and people do want to see you. I don't think I'm ever going to do that. I think there's a way to just slide out the door and say thank you and leave at a high level, and but I'm also willing to go sit in an excavator and move dirt too. So I don't have to do this forever.
Right. Now, with you doing this and still doing it, right? I've seen interviews with you and conversations you've had with people where, you're with, whomever, Darius or Ken or, whomever, right? In the realm. When you guys get together, is it like it's 1996 all over again, or is it
Well,
like a all new kind of thing?
minus the drugs and alcohol, yeah.
All right.
It's not like 1996 anymore. Yeah. Fat, drunk, and stupid's no way to go through life, son. But the friendships are exactly the same. And in fact, I got in shape for that Hootie tour for only one reason, and it was just so that I didn't have to listen to Darius make fat jokes all summer. And I swear to God, that was my only motivation. I was literally on a treadmill listening to Darius Rucker's record going, and it worked. And then he still managed to make fat jokes by pointing out that I wasn't fat anymore. And so I was like, damn it, he found a way. Still found a way. And but my wife laughs about it because she'll go, y'all are so mean to each other. I was like, that's how we show love, honey.
Yeah.
And in our band too, if you get on the bus and everybody's being nice to you, you're 10 minutes away from being fired.
Yeah.
Like that's the clearest signal that you're getting fired today.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's true. Now, when you guys all do meet each other or come across each other, when you guys are all starting out, like, what was the level of competition like? Was there competition? Was it like, no, fuck you?
No, I'll tell you, this is the best part because I didn't realize that we were supposed to be competitive.
Okay.
Because the way we all grew up and the bands that we were in and the bands that we admired. So in the Southeast, there was no, I mean, the biggest band from the Southeast that we knew of was the Allman Brothers.
Yeah.
And then Widespread Panic, and then Driving and Crying. And I mean, there was another band called All Good Music Company and a band called Egypt that was a pretty big bar band, and Johnny Quest and Dylan Fence. And we all rode around playing fraternity gigs and club gigs, and we all knew each other. And there was never any competition. Like I remember, if somebody's van broke down, somebody would, another band would loan their van and trailer, or if stuff got stolen, we'd all get together and put together enough gear for those bands to go and play their next gig. It was very, very, very much a fraternity of musicians, and we were all sort of pulling for each other. And we didn't really play. Everybody's music was different than each other, and so we didn't, like nobody sang like Darius, so we weren't competing with Darius because Darius was the only one that sounds like him, and it wasn't until I got to California that I realized that bands were real competitive with each other and sort of like kind of mean about it. And I was like, wow, that sucks because it's hard enough. But like, I'll give you an example. There was a weekend at Washington and Lee University where it was us, Dave Matthews, Hootie and the Blowfish, and the Grapes and Jacko Pierce were all playing on Fraternity Row at different houses on the same weekend. And we literally were running back and forth to each other's gigs.
Jesus Christ.
And then 3 weeks, a month later, Dave and Hootie were playing amphitheaters. And they were signed to major labels. It was crazy. It went from 0 to 100 so fast. It went so fast that when we were on tour with Hootie in 95, like they were selling out, 30,000 seat amphitheaters, and we all went to Disney World to go golf and hang out for 3 days. It was so new that we were still sharing hotel rooms with each other.
Yeah.
Because that was what we did. Because it'd be stupid to have your own hotel room. That'd be wasting money. Like
right.
that's how new it was to us. We were still doubling up in rooms and stuff.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you this, because, like I see it from my perspective, and like, I see it now with, right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm old enough to remember life before the internet and now life with the internet, right? And, I think about it, and like we talked about a little bit with Napster and that sort of thing. But how was it that you guys, and really you kicked off the way you did when you did at the time you did without, and became, huge without any of this shit?
Back then, you had to play fraternities and you had to play 1 million gigs. And then once you built up a following in the fraternities, you would transition to the local bars, and then you would build concentric circles around the areas where you had traction. Like, for instance, there were a couple of places that you, especially going up the East Coast, and I don't think anybody gives Jay Stevens enough credit. There's a guy named Jay Stevens. He's a quadriplegic, was a former Olympic swimmer that got into a car wreck and then became quadriplegic, but did not let that stop his passion for promoting music. And he owned a club in Winston-Salem called Ziggy's. And Ziggy's was the valve. It was the linchpin to the rest of the East Coast, because all of the good clubs that you wanted to play watched what Jay booked at Ziggy's. And if you could draw at Ziggy's, then you could basically go all the way to New York and back. And Jay curated like Two Skinny Jays and Dave Matthews and the Samples and God, I mean all the bands that you can think of in the 90s that were anybody went through Ziggy's first. And you had to prove to Jay that you really wanted it. And the way you did that was you would play either Christmas Day or the day after Christmas. if you wanted to get a regular weekend slot at Ziggy's, like a Friday during college, you had to suck it up and play on Christmas Day or the day after Christmas. And the thing about Ziggy's was it was semi-outdoors. There was a tent that covered the venue, but it was basically you just freeze your ass off on stage. They had space heaters and stuff, but you had to commit to freezing your ass off a couple of times in a row to make it to the Friday night that you really wanted. And then once that happened, and once you started really kind of crushing the college clubs, the word of mouth would spread through the colleges. And I'm not sure exactly how that happened, but it would. And, once the college kids were on board, if you could sell 5,000 of your own indie record, the labels would show up and offer you a deal.
Yeah.
That's basically how it would work. And that was the path. And Dave Matthews was the icebreaker. Dave Matthews was the first one to really break.
Yeah.
Indie wise. And then Hootie was right behind him. But in the meantime too, also like part of what was going on was like we were opening and playing lots of shows with Colonel Bruce Hampton and the Aquarium Rescue Unit. So our mindset was way more about being kind of a jammy band. And we were a jammy band. We were opening for the Allman Brothers and playing with Bob Weir. And we really did. We were headed more into the jammy world. And then we had a song on VH1. And as soon as you do that, like the jam band people are like, you can't be here at all.
Right. You're not cool anymore.
You have extreme success. They won't have anything to do with you. So we happily took our spot opening for Hootie and just never looked back. So
yeah, I mean, at that point, I guess you get the last laugh.
I still have a great affinity. Like Warren Haynes and I talk, 2-3 times a year. He calls or there's always something. Man, I talk to O'Teal all the time still, and I still have I still John Popper and I are friends. I mean, we have I have my foot still in that world. It's just, and Warren and I and Kevin Kinney started that whole Christmas jam thing in Asheville. We started doing that at Be Here Now years ago. And so, they're not, I haven't been completely rejected from that fan base. Like I went and sang, I was part of the band with Jazz is Dead. I did backup vocals, background vocals with Warren at the auditorium. He did a full thing with the symphony. He did a whole Dead show with the symphony. And so I still participate. I'm just, I can't go and play my own gigs in that world.
So, you were talking about moving to, going to LA. Do you think that if your career, like let's say you were coming up today, do you think you would even have had to have gone that route? Do you think it would have been a lot different the way the industry works now? Could you think you could have stayed home?
I don't know what to make of this career or what to make of this industry now. And I remember hearing Patty Griffin's demo, and I told everybody that I knew, I was like, this is going to be the biggest thing. She's going to win Grammy. She's unbelievable. And what I say is back then when the real thing showed up, it wouldn't be denied. Right. And now I'm not 100% sure that's true because I'll be scrolling through TikTok and I'll hear the real thing a lot.
Yeah.
Like no joke. like true, pure talent. And you go, it may catch fire and have like a viral moment, but then what?
Right.
You know, and it doesn't, you know, it doesn't convert into money or touring like radio used to for us. And the other part of that is there are so many great musicians that have figured out how to be great in their bedrooms by themselves.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily translate to the live venue because it's intimidating to walk out there and deal with an audience. And part of what I always preach to up and comers is, man, just go out there and busk, go out there and get those crappy gigs that nobody's paying attention to you, and figure out how to entertain people that were not there to hear you, and, you know, get some thick skin before you go out here and try to do this. But it's also, so on one hand, it's much easier to start building an audience inexpensively.
Right.
But then on the other hand, it's the attention span for it is at an all-time low. Because I watch the way my children consume music. They like certain artists for a certain short period of time, and then they move on to the next.
Yeah.
And those artists are great. Now, will they return back to those artists in 10 years and have some kind of nostalgic feeling about it? I don't know. Like, I'm not
I
100%,
don't know.
right? I don't
Yeah,
know.
I don't know. Yeah.
And I don't have a clue. I don't, again, I didn't even engage social media until the pandemic. And I didn't, because I was like a bunch of Gen Xers. I was like, never, you know, never going to participate in that devil social media. And then I was just bored to death during the pandemic. And I started messing around on TikTok. And the TikTok thing really opened my eyes to how the general public sees you.
Yeah.
Like, in my mind, I've been out here playing 100 shows a year for the last 30 years. And, you know, that's what we've been doing. But to the general public, I've been in the witness protection program.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Nobody had a clue. Like, everybody's like, where have you been? I was like, what do you mean, where have I been?
Right.
Like,
Right.
gigs. I've been in your town twice this year, you know?
Right.
But,
Right.
but everything is so dependent on you being right in their face
Yeah.
that if they aren't being bombarded by you and your advertisements for your shows or whatever, then you don't really exist anymore, and you've
Right.
been MIA. And I didn't realize that was what it had become. And it's been interesting because there's some parts of the music business that are exactly the same, and then there's some parts that are so different now. And but it's been fun because most of the people that I've dealt with now that I'm back on a label and doing the thing, everybody's been very nice and very like, oh, we're so glad you're back and blah. And so I'm like, oh, cool. So I've almost adopted this narrative of like, yeah, I've been gone, and you know,
Right. Right. No,
thank you.
yeah. Thanks for bringing me back, guys. Appreciate it. Now, with being back on a label and all that, what is the biggest difference have you seen from being, independent to being back on a label? Or does it even matter because of, how long you've already been in this industry?
The biggest difference in my world now is that I have like actual management. Like, for
Okay.
years, I was kind of managing myself, kind of halfway managing myself. Um, and so, I'm with Red Light Management, which is Corin Capshaw is Dave Matthews' manager. And,
Yeah.
I'm working with Charlie Brusco and Walter Burson out of Atlanta, who also manages Collective Soul and Styx. And anyway, but Charlie's been doing this for a million years, and so has Walt, and they know everybody in the industry. And when you have managers that can pick up the phone and make stuff happen, it's way different than just answering the phone when it rings. The difference between managers being proactive and reactive is light years. And so, for me, that's been the biggest difference. The label I'm with is funny too, because some of the people that are on this label are people that I worked with at Atlantic. So it's really not that different. The expectations are way different, because back when I was with Atlantic, selling 250,000 records was a failure. If I sold 250,000 records now, I'd be on the top of the charts, right?
Right.
And what's weird is how everybody wants vinyl. So this is the first vinyl record we first release where we released it on vinyl first.
Yeah.
And we pressed CDs and all that. I'm like, we're just going backwards.
Yeah.
But it really all comes down to your biggest avenue for promotion is social media.
Yeah.
And I'm not even playing the music on social media. I'm just literally but here's the thing about the social media now. Like back when I was with Atlantic, they wanted to build a mystery and promote this idea of you that wasn't necessarily true, and it was all polished, and it was all kind of, to me it was kind of smarmy, and I didn't really like it, and it made me kind of embarrassed. But now, the premium is placed on just being authentically yourself, and I'm here for that, right? I'm like, it's like, wait, I can just be, I can be me, and nobody's telling me what to do or say, or okay, I'm 100% on board with that. And that's what I really love about TikTok. And I'm going to be sad if it goes away. But I love catching the perspective of people that I would never have otherwise had a chance to meet.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorite creators is this kid named Cody Green. He's schizophrenic. And he talks really openly about living with schizophrenia. And when would you have ever gotten a chance to walk a mile in that guy's shoes, right?
True.
And
yeah.
And it's funny too, because after a while, and after you've been on there for a while, you can almost instantaneously tell who's authentic and who's trying to push something.
Yeah.
Right. And I like hearing other people's perspective, and it requires you to listen and be empathetic. And, there's a lot of people that are full of shit on there, and they're just trying to start trouble. But for the most part, there are a lot of people trying to work it out. And I think that's the highest form of strength that we have as human beings, is being able to be empathetic and listen and understand and absorb what people are saying. And for me, it was a whole new, it was a revelation. I was like, this is great, because I don't want to pretend to be, I don't want to wear the clothes. I don't care about the fashion part of the music business. And if I wanted to be, that was one of the things I kind of, if I really wanted to push it over the edge and be more successful, I was going to have to wear the clothes and do the things. And I tried it for a second. I was like, all right, I'll let you guys dress me up and whatever. And I was like, this is terrible. And now it seems like now the music business has sort of leaned way more towards, no, we just want you as you are. And I love that. And I'm fans of all the like Dury music. You ever see them?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like when my mama always said I would regret it. Like when that band came out of their basement, and they're just totally authentic. And I'm like, I love this band.
Yeah.
And I keep waiting for somebody to pop my bubble and tell me that it was it was all contrived. Like
It was
somebody
all a dream.
built the entire narrative, but I don't think it's true because I've actually had DM conversations with him, and that's the other thing. I've met a bunch of artists, like random artists on TikTok. We had this guy Jason Nix come out and open some shows, and I just scrolled on. I just accidentally scrolled into a live he was doing at midnight one night when I was driving home, and I was like, "What the hell is this?" So yeah, I'm encouraged by it.
Well,
And I think what the end result is going to be for a lot of musicians and is that there's a certain level of fame and fortune that's never going to happen again.
right, right,
But there is going to be a sustainable career that you can gather for yourself if you're dedicated and you love it.
right.
But it'll be up to you to decide what enough is, because I kind of had it early when I was playing by myself and down at the beach in Hilton Head playing 10 shows a week to the tourists. Like, I made enough money to support myself, and I was like, well, this is great. Like, I've
Right.
made it, right? And if you can be okay with that, I think there's a lot of musical careers out there for people. But I think you have to let go of this idea of there being some kind of Garth Brooks moment.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Well,
the days of the superstars are over.
right. But to your point about TikTok and the way you do it, I think it's all about being relatable. Yeah, you may be a celebrity on however you want to, slice that word. But like you post things on there, when it comes to you and your daughter, or and her pretty much giving you the finger because she's embarrassed because your dad,
Funny.
and
Yeah.
but like that's what people want to see. They want to see you in that, oh, he may be a star, but he lives the same kind of life I do.
Yeah.
you know
And I think there's a crossroads that you come to, if you're Prince, he made a decision early on, well, I'm just going to be a superhero and be unattainable. I'm going to be better, so good that no one will ever understand how great it is.
right.
And, of course I'm not normal. Like, you have to be larger than life if you're Prince, right?
Yeah,
I think for the most part, like all the people that I was influenced by, with the exception of David Lee Roth, were all sort of relatable, normal people.
yeah
And also it also speaks to the timing too. Like there was, the 80s and all the way up to Kurt Cobain, you could still have superstar level people. Obviously, I guess Taylor Swift still falls into that category, and but and I guess some of these, I don't know half the new artists, like especially the ones that are selling out stadiums. I have no idea who they are. You know what I mean? Like my kids have to explain to me. Like I had to have my middle son explain the beef between Drake and Kendrick.
No, I don't.
Will you explain? I don't understand.
I don't even know.
Why they're mad at each other and what it means, and
I'm still on the boat of that was the worst halftime show ever, and everybody's tried to explain it to me. So
if you're like, because, well, this is the point. This is the point I get to, is that like it's not for me.
right.
Like it's not for me. It's for them. They get it. They're as into this information as I was about that evil Sammy Hagar taking over my favorite band as lead singer. And, I was all in that drama, man, when I was 15 and 16 years old. And my father just couldn't believe that I could listen to that garbage. So, yeah, and that's the way it is. And I mean, the other, I guess the last bit, superstar band was Oasis. If you
Oh
think,
yeah.
and I'll tell you, man, I remember seeing them. We were all in a festival together, and then nobody knew who they were. And I just remember it was them, the two English bands that were on this big festival, and nobody knew who they were at the time. They were new to us. It was them and Coldplay. And I sat on the side of the stage and listened to Coldplay play Yellow to like 100 people.
Damn.
I was like, this band's going to be huge.
Yeah.
And then Oasis came and it was the same thing. I was like, they're either going to be huge or they're going to fight in every city they're in.
Right.
Because they basically just walked in like they were huge,
Right.
Even
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, it was. I think it was a different time where the public really enjoyed seeing people elevate. And well, I mean, I guess they still do, because look at what's her name? Pink Pony Club. What is her name?
Oh God.
Why
Who is
am I
it? Chappelle Ronan?
Chapel Roan?
Um,
Chapel Roan.
Chapel Roan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, but yeah, so yeah, no, I mean, I think that's another. So I think there is a certain portion of the public that still likes to see that story, superstar story. I mean, we're still pitching that archetype. So
Yeah.
I just don't think there's as many. I mean,
No,
if
okay.
think back to the '90s, like think about Lilith Fair.
Right. Right.
Like,
Every one of those women on that tour could have headlined an arena by themselves.
holy moly,
Right.
right? Like, so I that's the difference.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Damn. That is so true. And now, those artists like that, they'll tour now, like we were talking about at the beginning. Like, it's all nostalgia at this point. Like you could argue none of these bands and artists we've talked about from the 90s could have ever done anything ever again and still would have been fine.
Yes. And so I went to this. I got invited to a vacation. A friend of mine had rented Bryan Adams' house on Mustique, this island in the Caribbean, and I very quickly realized like the difference between '80s era FM music publishing royalties and '90s era was vastly different.
Yeah.
Like Bryan Adams, who knows? Like his house in Mustique was off the charts nice. And I was like, oh yeah, this is '80s FM radio. Yeah, it was bonkers. I was like, and that's another thing too. I think he's still out there doing it, and it's definitely not because of the money. He doesn't need money. There's no way he needs money at all. And so I see a lot of artists that are still out there, and as long as joy is the main driver, go.
Yeah.
Stay after it. It's just when you see, like, sometimes you get the feeling it's like, the people are still out here because it's too big to fail.
Yeah.
Don't, that. But yeah, that's the other part too, is I think one of the reasons why I think we survived is that I was so cheap. Like everything we did had to be able to be financed by touring. Like we never relied on sales or publishing or any of that stuff because it fluctuates so much.
Yeah.
So I was like, we have to develop an economy around our band that will sustain itself by touring.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that kept us alive. Because so many people sort of got to a level where you can't you can't keep it up. Like you can't continue to tour with 10, 18 wheelers. That's
Right.
not sustainable. Like for us, it was like, I'm going to buy an old bus that had been in a fire and fix it up. And we're going to go play all the places that we can go with our bus and trailer and set up and play and keep everybody paid.
Right.
'Cause, otherwise it won't work.
Yeah. Now, for what you're doing, now for the rest of the year, what does the rest of the year look like for you, music wise, touring wise?
I'm
You know.
doing off headline shows, and then we're picking up on the big tour with Train in
Yeah.
August. And so I'm going to say conservatively, I have about a 5-year clock running, and when I turn 60, I'll take a good look at it again and see if what we're doing is we're still performing at a high level. I will consider it. But my plan is to go 5 more years and play headline shows most of the time, but then get on as support for the big summer tours. Like I'd love to. I love being able to go out and support bands like Collective or Bare Naked Ladies and Train and Styx, and those gigs are a lot of fun for us because the venues are huge and there's catering and there's plenty of space to park and and
Yeah.
as the bus driver, because I drive the bus a lot of the time, I really appreciate having space to move around.
I think that Train tour is coming through here. I don't know. I don't remember where. I want to say the Melody Tent, maybe.
I have no clue.
I'm not sure either. I have no idea. I haven't.
And
I haven't looked.
I,
But
I literally I get up every day and go, where are we going? And it makes it way more of an adventure. If I look at the whole thing and try to memorize it, I go crazy.
yeah, yeah. Well, when you guys come through, we'll have to see if we're around and come out and see you.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah. I'll email your people. I got my people will call your people.
You will write down my number just so you can text me.
Okay. All right. I'm
Yeah,
not gonna write it down while we're on the air, but when I stop,
yeah, that would
so,
probably not
so
be
your
good.
number's not out there in the ethos. um, but I gotta say, before I can't thank you enough for taking your time and doing
Oh,
this.
happy
And
to.
this has been almost like a year in the making. This conversation.
Wow, really?
Yeah, because I reached out to your team selfishly when you guys were here with Hootie and you were at Fenway because I wanted to see that show really bad. And with the sounds fucking like an ego trip beyond belief, but like with the success we've had, it's been easy. Send an email and it is what it is. And every now and again I'll bite off more than I can chew. And they were like, well, it's like the day before, and I was like, I get it. Like it is what it is, right? And but your team was like, when he's got time, we'll reach back out. And when I got the email last week, I almost literally shit in my pants because I was
Oh,
like,
no,
they didn't forget.
no. And the Fenway thing was a zoo.
Oh, I bet.
And it was funny too because uh, I had a film crew that wanted to do like a pitch reel or something. They wanted to come catch some footage, but we had to go on like 45 minutes early to
Wow.
try to get out ahead of the rain.
Oh, that's right.
And so they were really hoping to have this like footage of me playing in front of a big crowd at Fenway, and I'm playing to the seats. And it was kind of like it was sort of a perfect example of the music business in general. Like you just got to be willing to do whatever it takes, no matter what it looks like, and just be glad you got the chance. And if you walk in with expectations, you're dead. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Right.
Like you gotta love all of it, and even when it's absurd. And that's what I tell a lot of the young bands I work with. I was like, man, if you don't love changing the tire on the trailer in the middle of the night and feel some satisfaction for figuring out a way to make it work and get to the gig and play, then don't do this.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not willing to like enjoy the trouble it's going to be to get there, because the getting there and playing part is gravy. It's all the other stuff you got to love. Because if you don't love that, then don't do it, because that's what most of it is. You
Yeah.
know, the short time that you get to be on stage is hardly a fraction of what the life really is. You know, and if you don't enjoy catching a bunch of shit off your friends, don't do this.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think about it all the time. And like I said, I saw you once a long ass time ago, and I was working at the venue at the time. So like I saw you, but I didn't see you, if that makes sense. And, I remember going into that show and working that night, and I was psyched because it was like, I get to see, at this
What
point,
venue? What venue?
Showcase Live.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you were working there. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I was a bar back, and, I got to hear most of it and see most of it. But
Dude, that place was packed
yeah,
all the time. It was
all
fun,
the
man.
time.
Dude, I would always tease the crowds up there. Say, y'all are just rednecks with weird accents.
It's true.
They
It is.
like, there's no difference. Like, New Englanders are my favorite people because they will absolutely tell you what's on their mind
Yeah.
without hesitation. Like you're never gonna walk away from a conversation wondering if somebody was BSing you, because
Yeah. No,
they're not
no,
gonna
we're
do
not. We're
that.
good.
And yeah, the most creative insults. Like you can hardly be mad at it sometimes, right?
Yeah. We'll tell you how to get there and where to go without telling you directly.
Yeah, those are my favorite. 100%. 100%.
Well, Edwin, I can't thank you enough for taking the time and
Anytime.
coming on and shooting the shit, and you did not disappoint. You
I
know,
appreciate you.
I could not ask for more, so I had
Ah,
to do it. I had to. I had
yeah.
to.
Yeah, I give everybody, I'm like, you get one could not ask for more pun, one I'll be pun in our friendship. Then after that, I
All right,
kick your balls.
it's fine. I got it out of my system.
You got one of them. Then
Whew.
you get one better when I'm older joke too. That I would save that up this summer.
All right, I'll do that. I'll do that. All right. Well, I'm gonna. I'll stop the recording. I'll get your number down, and then we'll call it an evening.
Sweet.
All right. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, man.
Well, there you have it, everyone. Our conversation with Edwin McCain. What a if you didn't enjoy that conversation and had fun with it like we did, something wrong with you. What did we do this past weekend? Nothing. Oh, we went and saw this really great local band. If you're in the New England area, go check them out. They're called Overserved Again. Um, I don't like. I shouldn't say this. I don't always seek after cover shows. I don't. I don't care for it. I don't like it. But these guys were freaking incredible. They play a lot of like stuff like Zach Bryan, Tyler Childers, that sort of country music, not this pop bullshit. Um, so it was really enjoyable. We had a great time. Big thanks to Moonshine Alley for having us out and seeing them. So thanks again for that. What else? What else? What else? Um, that's it. That's it. Next week we have. Um, Next week is Shay. Shay from the Barlow Band. Um, Good friends of ours. They have an album coming out next week, so we're gonna have them on the show. Their new album, guys, is fantastic. Whew, it is good. It's good stuff. I've been listening to it since like January. We got an advanced copy of it, and I cannot wait for you guys to hear this full album. It's freaking awesome. So that's it. What else? I don't think we have anything major coming up soon. Yeah, that's really it. So obviously, if things come up, we'll let you know. And that's it. Also, if you went to any of the ragweed shows over the weekend in Oklahoma, let us know how it was. From the videos we saw, it looked incredible. So that's it, guys. So until next Tuesday, keep those boots on the ground, the whiskey and glass. Be good to each other. Cheers, y'all. I don't think there's going to be a special episode this week. There shouldn't be, because we're getting down to just a few episodes in the can. But we're also going to be recording some too. So thanks for coming for the ride. Go check us out on all of our socials, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.